Well, welcome back. Ben
Hi,
Hayden, LIT Electricians, thank you for joining me again today. And we're going to be talking about energy. Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I know you've had a lot of questions. You've probably been inundated, Ben, and I've been tagged into a couple of things as well. People are getting their electric bills because let's face it, down here we are mainly electric, aren't we?
Yeah, we've not got a decent gas supply around here. Let's
Yeah.
use the butane gas bottles and
And one lady whom I know very well, who is very sprightly, but I have to say quite elderly, €300 for her last bill. I know our good friend Dave Hodgson published last week that his bill was €130 more this
yeah,
time than at the same time last year. Is this typical of what's happening just now, Ben?
yeah, definitely. I mean, the prices, they're staying quite high. They might drop it a little bit here and there, but they're keeping high. It doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah. Can I just share something, Ben, just to let people see what's been happening with the electricity prices over the last, well, actually the last month, and this is up until last Wednesday. And if I can share this, people will actually see exactly what's been happening.
Okay, yeah, that's very clear.
Yeah, I mean, what we have to say is this starting point is a lot higher than it would have been at the same time last year. But
Yeah,
it's been going down a little bit, up and down and up and down, and up until last Wednesday. Now, this is the price per megawatt hour, yeah?
yeah,
Um, and that was last Wednesday, but it's already gone up again since then. The thing I really wanted to highlight is this, though, if I can just see it here it is here highlighted here. For the same time last year, the price of fuel has increased by 371%. 371%. And this is the bit that is costing people the money, isn't it, Ben?
yeah. It's the cost of buying the fuels is the problem where the cost of the money is. We're in Europe, so we have different. It's not the same all over the world, but there is definitely this transition and the change. So we've got to really bear in mind of what we're doing.
Yeah, and this part is people have talked about, should I change my company? Are they going to see a big difference in their bills at this stage? Unless they've got some horrendously unfair contract at the moment, are they going to see big changes in their bills
No,
between companies?
I don't think so at the moment. No, I mean for what I'm seeing, there might be some companies offering you a large incentive to look as if you might be saving some money. But at the moment, I wouldn't go. I personally would not advise anyone to change at the moment.
Right. Okay. So we're kind of stuck with the size of the bills as they are, Ben. So
Yeah,
what can we do to try to reduce them? We have talked about the sort of different bands or the different times. I can see if I can find that just to share it. But there are different bands and they cost different amounts of money, don't they?
yeah. I think the thing is as well to look at is to, like we talked about the potentia, is to look at your peak moments in power, is try to lower them. So manage
Right.
your electricity supply better by spreading out your appliances and your needs for fuel in the correct tariffs. It seems
Yeah.
quite simple, but we can set timers, etc., to look at this.
And these are the different times that we're talking about, aren't we?
Yeah,
The valle is the off peak. The horario llano is like a flat rate, and then the horas punta are the peak rates. So yeah, there is something about trying to use the most demanding appliances during. I guess we're going to try to use it during this time or this time, but can't really have your heating on between midnight and 8 in the morning. It doesn't make sense, does it?
well, to be honest, like it's like the old storage heaters. They seem to die out, but now is it worth going having a look at the old styles, really? The old
Well, that's
style,
very true.
economy sevens, etc.
Yeah, so storage heaters might be one way to look at that, but of course, Ben, that's going to involve expense, isn't it?
Of course, yeah, and this is what we're trying to look for with each person. Is not to look to them to spend a lot of money. Is to look at the installation that they've got and ways to manage it better. So, come up with a bit of a weekly plan about how you're going to do all your washing and perm your hair. Look, and plan out what you're going to do, and that's the only way really to save money with the installation that you've got as it is now. Like, yes,
Yeah,
you can invest in new heaters, new air conditioning, but that's a work in progress, isn't it? It's not going to happen overnight, but within the next couple of weeks, if you look at what you're actually using, and oh look, I don't actually need all this potential, so we can lower that down, and
right.
then look to plan out what you're doing.
But
That's the best way now to save money. It's not
that's
change.
really
It's not change suppliers.
that's really just skimming little bits off, though, Ben, isn't it? When
Mm,
the actual big part of the cost isn't the distribution, it isn't the sort of standing charges, um, it isn't just the potentia. You know, really, you can skim little bits off here and there, possibly, but we're kind of stuck at the moment, largely with the actual cost of the energy, and this
correct.
is what's
Yeah.
crippling people, isn't it?
Yeah. That is definitely where the cost is. But how do you escape that? How do you escape that cost? And the only way to do it is to self-generate, is to be more self-sufficient.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to be talking about options for, we're going to call them renewable energies, but these are the kind of things that we can do at home to generate our own power, isn't it? But I'm going to put you on the spot here, Ben. If people are heating, let's just say mainly one room, which is actually what
Yeah.
most of us do, isn't it? We kind of heat the room that we're living in, and gas or electric at the moment. And with gas, I'm thinking more butane, but because most people
Yeah.
have these heaters with the butane cylinder in it.
I'm personally not a fan of gas. In the air and the environment, I think that's worse than the cost. But probably the gas would be a good way to go down if you wanted to heat.
Yeah,
But I think if you're going to have to buy gas heaters and then gas bottles, maybe look at just a really energy efficient heating system.
right,
Um, that's probably a better idea, on a timer system as well that works alongside the tariffs.
right. Okay, what are the big costs, Ben, at the moment in terms of what is it that's bumping up people's bills at the moment? Is it the washing machines or tumble dryers? Is it the heating system? Is it the cooker? What's really bumping the costs up?
So anything that heats and anything that cools is where your costs are going. Well, a
Right,
lot of the costs are going. A lot of the properties now are LEDs, for the lighting. So we've tried to eliminate some of them costs from there, like the energy wastage. But
right.
anything to do with the heating and the cooling, so your cookers, your air conditioning units, your underfloor heating, that's where your costs are.
Right. Okay. And uh, well, people that are listening to this are likely to be fairly local people, and
Yeah,
we all know that our houses are very often colder inside than it is outside on the street.
definitely, definitely.
So, possibly part of it is trying to sort of delay, when we put our heating on. Maybe in the past we've just gone, oh, I think I'll warm the house up, but now we
Yeah,
may need to be a bit more smart about when we're putting things on. Yeah,
yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think to make sure you've got the right size heater for the room, so you're not burning too much energy. Trying to keep something mega hot. Is Everything needs to be designed and looked at, really. I think if you're going to go down that route of doing the heating and the aircon and the cooling, everything needs to be made sure it's suitable for the application it's needed for.
yeah. Okay, Ben. I want you to talk to us a little bit about renewables. Now, I know that this involves cost, and I also know that these things are kind of a long-term investment, aren't they?
Yeah,
So
it's a, it, this
go
is
on.
now we need to think about the shift, the green energy transition, which we're going through. and
Right.
what's going to happen over the next few years. If you look at the energy market, it's massive, isn't it? You know, we're having a massive cost for fuel. It looks like we're being restricted some, you know, some of the gas and some of the fossil fuels that are needed. So that's the cost of that that's in, you know, put onto us. So we need to look at how we can get the cost down. Renewable energy,
Okay.
self-generation, cutting out the middleman as such. You know, it's you're able to have a system that is designed for your installation and have other, you know, other equipment put in to reduce that consumption. It just every house is going to be different, so I can't say, you know, oh, every house needs solar, every house needs batteries, every house needs, you know, cheaper air conditioning. It's every property is going to be different, but we all know that we're going to use some electric inside a property. So solar is a really good way to go, especially in Spain, especially in
Right.
the summer. We have long days, so it's a good
Yeah.
idea to have a look at the options for that. It's
Listen,
also good. Yeah,
no, I was just going to say that a few years ago we installed solar panels for hot water,
yeah.
and my wife said that she's going to love me forever.
Yeah, they're great systems. Great
We
systems.
used to have, like two gas bottles connected to a boiler,
Yeah,
and sometimes on really windy days, the damn thing wouldn't kick in the morning, or the bottles would both go empty
oof,
at the same time. And
yeah,
you're standing there in the bathroom 7 o'clock in the morning, and the shower won't come hot, and you have to come outside and change the bottles over. And a few years ago, we installed solar panels for hot water, and that in itself, it's probably more than paid for itself by now, because we were using two bottles in maybe a month.
yeah, yeah. You see, with they're great systems. They actually have an immersion backup as well. So
Yeah,
if the you know if the sun is not heating your water, at least you're still getting your hot water because of the immersion. So great systems. They're cost effective, and yeah, would definitely recommend them
yeah,
alongside the PV.
yeah. So
We've got
that's one side of it, Ben.
yeah.
Um, can you talk to us a little bit about other options that might exist? Because we chatted over the period, and it's not just one thing or another, is it? That there are
No, I
various
think
options.
I think we need to look at the actual installation that people have now. You know, how outdated is it? And then to look at what you need to do to reduce that consumption, keep the costs down.
Yeah,
So some other good options you can look at, like heat source pumps. If you're building like if you've got a lot of work you're going to be doing, if you're doing a renovation, they're a good idea to look at. We also do things with pool pumps and air
right,
conditioning to lower the costs. But
right,
I think the main thing here in Spain at the moment is the sun for domestic customers. I mean,
right,
for businesses, you can look at other options with wind and even on the DNO side, which is the distribution network, look at waves.
right.
But for the domestic customer, me and you, it's solar and the sun. That's where we're going to get the most of our energy from.
Right. So obviously, the system I described to you for us for hot water is basically a solar system, as you say, with an immersion backup.
Yeah.
Um, and that's probably taken a lot of our costs off the butane tanks, plus
Hmm.
the inconvenience of having to lug two of these things down to get them changed every month.
And they're heavy.
They
And they're
are
heavy.
heavy. So that's one side of things. What about the other in terms of actually generating our own electricity?
So generating your own electricity is key, I think, to keeping them costs down with you over the next 5 years. You need to look at a long-term plan if you own the property, or even as a rent. If you're renting properties out, you have tenants. I think it's a good selling point to look at the options of what does this property need, what we need to generate, what space have we got, where's the best locations to put them, not just the most pleasing for the eye, but you need to make sure that where they are, they're going to work. Like, for instance, some of the problems you do have with solar is they're rated at the top. Say it's a 4 kilowatt system, it's rated at the absolute best peak condition. So you're not going to
Right.
be generating that all the time. So you need to bear in mind all of these and look into exactly what's going on to be able to say it. You know what's going to be ideal for everyone in cost wise, especially.
Right. And I know, Ben, you came on my radio show was it several months ago, and we were talking about some of these things. And something that impressed me because it had happened to us at home. What was, I'm saying, I can go in and buy a system for, 4,000 euros, and will you come and install it?
Mm-hmm.
And you said, wait a minute, Bill, wait a minute.
Yeah,
And this happened to us at home, Ben. We went into a DIY store and looked at pellet stoves, which we actually have in the house, and I find them very,
a good
very,
idea.
very cost effective. But the guy who was contracted by the store to come and install it came in, looked in the room, and he said to us, "Look, I can install this for you, and I'll guarantee you now you're not going to be happy with it."
Yeah, that's the problem.
Because he said, for a room this size, this stove, although it says it on the packet that it will heat so and so many cubic meters or whatever, he said this stove is not going to heat the room the way you want it, and you won't be happy. Now,
Yeah,
this was the same kind of thing that we spoke about, Ben, about solar panels, wasn't it?
yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of kits that are flying around, and everything needs to be designed and looked at with proper eye to detail, and look at the installation that's there, what's currently going on, and it needs to be designed because what happens is you might end up with a system that you take a long time to get your investment back, or one that's just not needed that size. On the
Right.
other side, you could have say if you've got a job going on and it's on your house and you have to have scaffold go up or cherry pick or some piece of machinery. Um, you don't want a small system to be put on that's too small, because if you have to hire all that to get back up to them to install all the heavy equipment, then there's more cost that's going to be involved again, which should have been avoided by just thinking, oh, I'll get away with a small system now. Well, hang on a minute. If we thought of where the costs are actually to put it up to a bigger one, if you do need more power, which you'll know of because of the design you've done.
Yeah. And, I suppose the potentia that we've got contracted would give us a kind of idea of what size of a system we need, would it, Ben? So if I have 5 kilowatts contracted for my house,
Yeah,
do I just go and buy a kit that's as near to 5 kilowatts as possible? Or
no, I wouldn't agree with that at all. No, you need to look at the usage and your times of usage. Because, for instance, if you use all your power at night, you need to be looking at using a battery system. If you use it in
right,
the day, obviously, use it with, you could probably get away without having batteries. But the thing is, you need to look at the way you manage your electric. That's the key, most important thing for everyone, to
right,
reduce the consumption. And what I mean with that is by looking at the potentia, then it's your peak moment. The mindset needs to change of having everything on at the same time.
yeah,
That's that way. Then you could possibly live with a smaller solar powered system, or it would work better for you. Should we say, it'd be more
yeah.
efficient, which is a better, which is better all around.
Yeah, but what you were also saying, I think, is interesting that even if you buy, I don't know, for argument's sake, a 4 kilowatt system, it doesn't mean you're going to get 4 kilowatts of power coming out of that. We're talking about photovoltaics here, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they've obviously, it's like everything's rated to what the peak moment is, to make it look good and to make it sell. But I think you really need to look at all the applications. What's happening, all the factors, what the current installation's like, to be able to give a firm design on
Right.
what's needed for each and everybody that's individual.
So are you suggesting, Ben, that, if a person is serious about, for example, going down the photovoltaic system, really, unless they're engineers and understand how these things work, they really should get a company in to do a kind of evaluation of,
Definitely to work with them alongside them. I
yeah,
think because it's not going to be a quick process. I think that's the best way to do it, is just to start to learn a bit about how your system works at home, you know,
Yeah.
and then put together a bit of a management plan, really.
Right. And I guess, I mean, I looked into this a few years ago and never went down this route, Ben, because right at that point it was just looking too expensive for us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But what was I going to say? The oh, it's gone out of my head. Um, oh, well, I'll ask you this, and I'll think about what I was going to say. um, is there still a possibility, if you're producing more power than you need, can you still sell it back into the network?
Yes, you can. Yeah, there are feed-in tariffs, but they don't normally work out right, you know. So what they sell it back to would be really cheap, and then what you buy it for will be really expensive. So, you know, are you better off just going with a better tariff rather than worrying about the feed-in tariffs?
Oh, right.
But in the future, I can definitely see this feed-in tariff changing, because we've got to stop buying the fossil fuels. We need to look at different ways to power the grid. So more of an incentive, I think, will be in the future of having solar and feed into the community around you. I think it's what they do in California. If you want to have a look at what's going to happen in Europe, have a look what's happening in California.
Yeah,
They're leading the way with self-generation and generating within, you know, their local network,
right.
and reducing the prices. I mean, you still got to maintain the network that's there, but as far as generation and buying the actual fuel, it's a much better way of doing it.
Right. I remember what it was I was going to say, Ben. It was connected to what you were mentioning about, you're not going to get the full potential
Yeah,
of the panels, and I remember reading that, you know, if you want to get full potential from solar panels, you've got to mount it in some kind of system that will move with the sun, so that the sun is always going straight onto
well,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is, again, you will have peak moments of generation. So, you know, when the sun radiance, as you call it, but when that's at peak over the top of your panels as it needs to be, then yeah, you will
Yeah.
generate a good amount. But obviously, when the sun's setting, it will drop off a bit.
Uh,
So again, that's back down to the managing your electricity and use it at the peak times that you need to use it to
right.
save money.
And would all solar systems have some kind of battery backup as part of it, Ben?
No, 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 not at all. No, you can have just standalone units. I mean, you can have an island unit which doesn't require a connection from the DNO, which is the distribution network operator, which is your grid, your Endesa as such.
Right.
Um, but most of them will need a connection onto the grid. So you have a constant flow from the grid, and then your solar just to back it up throughout the day. And I find they're good systems, because if you use your electricity right at these peak times of generation, not peak times of tariff, peak times of generation, you can then dramatically reduce your bills. But the problem is, if you have a solar installed, it's not installed correctly, it's not designed correctly, and then they've not looked at your usage and your pattern, and they've not helped you to manage it, then you could have a lot
Right.
of problems, because in the evening, you know, if you're not using it all day and it's just feeding back into the grid, and then you go in
Yeah.
at night thinking you've got a load of power there and you haven't.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw something else out at you, Ben. You know,
Okay.
I am looking on, I don't know, Facebook or wherever, where I get adverts, or YouTube, and adverts come up, and someone advertises, complete system for, I'm making up this price, 4,500, and you'll get your grants from the government to offset the cost of this.
There's a lot of confusion about the subsidies. I mean, I know the direction I think there's going to be going. I think by looking about what's happening, there's a backlog already with some of the subsidies that are coming through. So that's just going to keep increasing with the amount of sales that seem to be happening at the minute and there's a lot of people pushing the solar sales, shall we say.
Right.
So there's only a certain amount. I'm not sure how many they do. There's a budget each month that they once that's gone for that month, that's gone, and then they have to go over to the next month, and then the next month, and the next month. So
Right.
it'll come a point where they've run out of money, or the money they allocated will not be paid out. And this is
Right.
where I think the feed-in tariffs are going to come in. I think the feed-in tariffs are going to be big once
Right.
these subsidies go, but who knows? I think if you can afford solar now with a one-off payment, it's a great idea, and then hopefully the subsidies come through correctly. But the other option is to look at financing the solar, or financing, your installation, and working out the cost of what it will cost for your finance, and then the cost of what you're paying now, and maybe look at what's going to happen in the future and make a decision for yourself.
Yeah.
What's best for your lifestyle.
Yeah, well, listen, I certainly think that this is a time, if the prices are going to stay at this kind of level, it's certainly a time to look at this, Ben, isn't it? Because we looked at this maybe a year or 2 years ago, and actually the energy part of our bill was so small that I
Yeah.
was going to have to live till I was about 130 to pay it off, because
Yeah.
because really the energy part, the standing charges and that are, well, they're there all the time, but we were maybe only spending 30 euros in a month for the actual energy part,
Yeah.
and it's like, is it really worth it? But when you've had a 370% increase in that energy part,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you think, whoa, we're talking about a different thing now, aren't we?
Definitely. It's a lot of politics that are involved as well, and how's that looking in the future? It's just, the world is changing, isn't it? And the energy changes, and the way we generate, and we've got to plan our lives. I think we need to look at that, over the next 5-10 years of what we're doing. Really, it's interesting.
Yeah. So, on the grants things, I think what you were saying there is, just don't plan to spend this money on the strength that there will be a grant coming back to pay for part of it. Is that what you're
Correct.
saying?
Yeah, that's my message really at the minute to people is, because of this system with the backlogs and a certain amount each month to be paid, that could cause problems. And I always say to everyone, if you can't afford the solar, if there's a one-off payment because you're banking on the subsidies, I just think to hang off for the moment.
Right.
But
Hang
then
on.
there are other financing options. So
I've got a question from Connie here. Can you see it on the screen here, Ben?
yeah,
So if we
see
purchase
part of it.
them outright, um, with you, for example, sorry, with you, would you send in the Andalusia rebate for it? So if you were the installer of a system,
Yeah,
would you, as the installer, apply for the rebate, or?
we would assist. We would assist the whole way through it. So as part of our team, like the admin team, that deals with the Spanish side, the Endesa side, the Andalusian side. And they'll work with me and the customer to make sure we get all the information and go through the whole procedure with each other, because there's going to be questions we need to answer, keep in contact. So yes, basically, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you would help to actually do the paperwork for.
Yeah, every step of the way, we're here to help. It's confusing enough, so as part of our team, we have a member that can help and guide them through.
Yeah, and the other thing, Ben, is at the front end. This is once the system's been purchased and or installed, but a lot of people, I think people who've been here for a while know this, but you can't just get up one morning and phone a company and say, "Come and install some solar panels for me," can you?
No,
No.
no,
No.
no.
You basically need a license if you want to go to the toilet during the day.
Yeah, well, that's not all the time that we've found that. Every site is different and every property is different. Sometimes you do need the licenses. Some of the other properties we've come by haven't needed a license.
All right. Okay. How
Mm.
does that work, Ben?
Well, so again, with part of our admin team, every site and every house needs to be looked at and looked at what's available and what we can do with it. So once we have a firm plan of who governs the land, who's in control, we can
Right.
then go through the procedures. We've been through them all, whether it's dealing with urbanisations, town halls, we deal with everyone.
Right. Okay.
But
But
everyone is different.
in general, we need to think of the idea of any kind of work on the house is likely to involve some kind of permission from the
It
local
needs
government.
it needs to be checked. You know, you need to make sure that you're working within the legalities of where you're working. I think that's the same with
Yeah,
everything, isn't it? You know, to make sure that to avoid fines and avoid any issues in the future, just make sure that you
sure.
know even you as a property owner need to be aware of what you can and can't do on your own property. You know, I think that's something I'd
Well,
advise everyone to find out.
that's absolutely right, Ben. And just to pick up again on Connie's question, this idea of the rebate or the grant against the installation or the cost of whatever of the system, um, you know. In Spain, you need to have very often all of the house papers in order to be able to apply for these things, even, don't you?
And this is what I mean with the qualifying. You know, it's not everyone's going to be different. You know, the paperwork's different. Everything just seems to be, you know, there's not a set way to do it, shall we say? So
Right.
that's why I say to people that if you're buying solar on the fact that you're going to be getting the money back 100% guaranteed, I wouldn't sell it like that at all.
Right. Okay. So if you can get a rebate or a grant, after you've actually purchased the system, then that's a nice bonus. But
Correct? Yeah,
don't do it on the basis that, well, if I spend 7,000, I'm going to get 2,000 back, and it only cost me 5,000, and I
yeah.
can afford 5,000.
That's the one. That's. I think that's a big message that people need to understand, that because of the way the system works and the way that they hold the money, you could end up not, maybe possibly not getting it. I'm not saying that 100%, but
Yeah.
it could come to the time when that will happen.
Yeah. Ben, so but our time's almost up for today, Ben. Any final advice for people who are struggling with their current electricity bills? Just apart from we understand about the different scales for different times of the day. Any other advice you want to give people to help to reduce the bills?
There's a lot I could go through, and like I said, everyone is going to be different. But I think if we look to more to level out the electric throughout the day and not have peak moments, and again
Right.
look at the tariffs,
Mhm.
and then probably look at what you can do over the next 5 years. So nothing's going to happen now overnight that you're going to say, right, I'm going to save money by not doing this. I think you need
Right.
to have a bit of a plan in action of how you're going to supply energy to your life in the future. For instance, with cars, you know,
Mhm.
you know, we all know that we need fossil fuels, and why do we know that? Because when we get in the car, we turn the engine on, it's diesel, it's petrol,
Yeah.
90%, I suppose. So that's how reliant we are at the moment on fossil fuels. So we need to self-generate and store our power in the future, whether it be in a vehicle or in a battery. But that's the way our world will need to be powered.
Yeah. Ben, thank you so much for joining me today. And I was pulling your leg on social media this week, saying, please don't connect up to your neighbour's internet connection because
We got it all sorted this week, Bill. We got it
we have
sorted.
indeed, Ben. It's been great this week. Listen, I'm sure there are more things that we can talk about. So will you come back in 2 weeks' time, Ben, and we'll
Perfect.
pick
Yeah, I'd
up
love to.
on some more
Love
issues.
to.
And if you can gather from customers and people that any questions that are coming up, and I'll do the same. And we'll put these questions to you. If you can give them us in advance, that would be great because it gives Ben time to have a think about it and
Yeah.
to respond to it. Thank you so much to everyone who's been joining us today. Ben, thank you very much for
No,
joining us,
thank you, Bill.
and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time, Ben.
Perfect. Look forward to it. See everyone later.
Take care now,
Bye.
Ben. Sorry. Listen. Thank you, Mark. The Bill and Ben show. It had to be said at some point, didn't it?
I thought it was coming. I thought it would have been sooner, but there it is.
Okay, take care now. Thanks,
See
Mark,
you
for
later.
joining us as well.